kingdom is like an owner of a vineyard who paid everybody the same, no matter how long they worked. And when the ones who had worked longer complained, said, I haven't been unfair, I've just been generous. And he asked this question that is hard to hear. Are you going to get stingy because I'm generous? Ouch. You know, what this parable is talking about depends on the listener. But it's a parable about grace. Now remember, last week we talked about justice, which is getting what you deserve, and about mercy and forgiveness, about not getting what you deserve. And grace is about getting what you don't deserve. Now, wait a minute. What do you mean? Grace is getting something that you did nothing to earn, that you did nothing to merit. In other words, you didn't really do anything. It was just a gift. Whereas mercy is you did something, and you needed forgiveness for it. And mercy and compassion is not getting the punishment you deserve, but getting something far better. Where grace is just a gift. It's getting something you might even not know was coming. And you certainly didn't do anything to earn it or deserve it. Now, Jesus, listeners, when he tells this parable, he's talking to some Pharisees, the lawmakers. And for them, they understand that in their lives and traditions, they have been the ones to keep the law and to make sure others keep the law. They have been the sinless ones. And when Jesus tells them this parable, they understand themselves to be the ones that God has enlisted in this task of keeping the law early on. And here's these latecomers, and God's reward is the same to them. Somehow that doesn't fit. That doesn't sound right. That those who would come late to God would get the same reward from God as those who had served their whole life for God. We sometimes forget that not only were there those that heard Jesus tell this parable, but then there's that next set of listeners, Matthew's church. Those who read Matthew's gospel. That's another set, and they're a little later. And now there's a mix of Jews and Gentiles in Matthew's church, and there are many Jews who feel that they've been part of God's family since the beginning, through Abraham and Moses and the prophets, and now here's these upstart Romans and Greeks and all these other people that don't have any of that tradition or history, and now God's favoring them too. So there are those in Matthew's church who are like the last workers and like the first workers. And then there's us who hear this text today. Grace is a funny thing, because when we receive grace, we think it's wonderful. When I went on leave, there were especially two, but several families from my church that I'd been serving, but two in particular, I went to work in retail, and often was the store closed at 9 o'clock in the evening. My daughter was in 4th grade, and these two families that would alternate picking her up from school and taking her to her house until I picked her up sometimes as late as 10 o'clock by the time I got back in Greensboro. I couldn't afford childcare. It was pure grace. And they didn't need to do this for me. It was pure grace. And how wonderful it was. I mean, they wouldn't take anything for it. Oh, we love him. And, they wanted to do it for me. Not because I'd earned it, but just because I needed it. And when we receive grace, it's wondrous. When somebody else receives grace, sometimes we're not as happy about that. When the referee's call goes against state, or your school of choice, we're not as happy about that. But when they blow a call that helps our team, we go, yeah, keep this that way, go. We don't accept grace given to others quite as well as we receive it given to us. And that's the story of the parable. Those workers who worked all day got what was promised to them, got the wage they agreed on in the morning, but when they saw grace given to others, well, that was a problem. I don't know if you've experienced that in your life. Probably have. There's been somebody who just received a blessing that you really would have liked. Maybe it was a grade in school, maybe it was a friend, maybe it was the girl you were sweet on. Some gift that they got somewhere along the line that you didn't get. And you might even have thought you deserved it. As Christians, you will not believe this, but sometimes as Christians, we get jealous of those who just all of a sudden gave their lives to the Lord, and now they're Christians and they're all fired up. And we're going, well, we've been around church our whole lives. I'm the one who's been on these other committees, and I've been all doing all this, and I don't understand why they get all. We don't ever do that, I know. But sometimes people do that. I know one gentleman who really had a hard time with the idea that someone on their deathbed who had lived a horrible life could give their life to Christ and be saved. When they've been in church their whole life. I said, yes, but you got to understand, you've had a relationship with God your whole life. What a blessing. They lived in hell their whole life. And now, finally, they're being blessed. That really didn't make any sense to him. But I tried. It made sense to me. If, in fact, our delight, our goal, is to live in God's kingdom now, then grace is what we're all about. Then grace is what touches us. Then grace is the only way we can live in that kingdom. Because we can't earn it. I don't know about you, I'm not that good. I can't earn a life in the kingdom. I can't earn the kind of mercy and compassion and grace and kindness that God is willing to give me. I can't earn those kinds of ties that I have with those in God's family who look out after each other, who take care of each other, and who hold each other up in prayer. I can't earn any of that. I can't work my way into the kingdom. It's only through God's grace, through that wonderful gift of Christ, that I can live in the kingdom. Only through the wondrous gift of the Holy Spirit that I can live in the kingdom right now. I'm always puzzled by how I should respond to that grace. Whether I should, and I think the writer of the song, when I'm there, should I, will I sing his praises, or will I be able to speak at all? Do I respond by falling on my knees in tears, or do I respond by shouting for joy? Should I respond by getting to work? Okay, now that I'm in the kingdom, let's recruit some others to join us. And I think the answer is yes, to all those things. I think the best way to respond to God's grace is just like all those little ones up here this morning on Christmas. How do you open a gift? You carefully flip all the tape and so you can save the paper. Kids don't do that. They just rip it off. So eager to open God's gift. So eager to play with what's inside. And somehow I think that's what God wants. Us to be like a 3-year-old with a Christmas gift. Just so excited. And so eager to use that gift that we can't do anything